Suraj Patel is joining me now, so good to see you. Thank you for being here on Picks on Politics.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me.
So let me get into this, because it's not your first attempt, right, at running for Congress. You faced Carolyn Maloney before and lost. So this time against Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler. Why do you feel this third time for you is the one that you'll actually win?
Well, look, Dan, this is a change election. It's quite evident that 1990s politicians don't have an answer for Mitch McConnell and 2022 Republicans on gun control, on climate change, on immigration, on reproductive rights. We've lost every major battle to these Republicans.
Yeah.
And we may have defeated Trump, but we all know that Trumpism is on the rise. Anti-Semitism, homophobia. I mean, this guy is coming back. And the question is, who in this race has the energy, the wherewithal, and the ideas for a plan forward to make a new case for New York values?
Yeah,
so this is the referendum on the status quo.
So in your announcement video, because I watched it very carefully, you blamed career politicians for losing ground in the race to keep the majority in Congress, right? So I guess when you talk about that, do you believe that Maloney and Nadler are responsible?
Well, look, I believe that a generation of Democrats don't have a new message to win back voters. Let's put it this way, for example. 69% of Americans believe in Roe versus Wade, but 49% of those people voted for Donald Trump. So the question is, how are we losing that 20%? And the answer is because we need to be comprehensive. We need to make a new case for liberal New York values out across the country. Look at the city itself. We've got rising crime. We've got a livability crisis. And it is in part because of incumbents like Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler who've created a culture of no. No to new housing, no to new transit, no to zoning. This week, we just learned that median rents in New York City and Manhattan crested $4,000 a month. Now, how many people watching know at least one person who left New York in the last 2 years to Florida or somewhere else? And these problems have been decades in the making, and they're going to take decades to solve. But in Maloney and Nadler, we've got two incumbents who were more concerned about gerrymandering their own districts to their own benefit, which has been reported time and again by the New York Times and other outlets. And that blew up in their face. And I see this race against one another that they have as a comeuppance about whether or not they're more effective at maintaining their own power or actually making a case for values.
Yeah, and so let me talk about some of the big issues right now that are facing New Yorkers, right? And obviously gun violence is one, and I want to get to that. But you just mentioned the rise in rents. Obviously, New York becoming a very unaffordable place to live. And then there was lots of talks that were reignited during last week's governor's debate about congestion pricing, right? Which would really impact districts that you would represent. So are you in favor of congestion pricing?
Absolutely. I'm in favor of congestion pricing. It is long overdue. If we're serious about livability in this city, if we're serious about traffic deaths, and if we're serious about climate change, then this is something that needs to happen.
And so where do you think a lot of the money would be going to the MTA? That's the whole point of congestion pricing. Who pays for it?
Drivers who drive into Manhattan, these roads are not, don't just belong to drivers, and they belong to the people. And we know we need more bike lanes. We know we need more space, more public space, more parks and things like that. And to your point about this livability crisis, it is because when's the last time you have seen an official, an incumbent like Carolyn Maloney or Jerry Nadler say yes to a single project? I mean, they show up to every protest to say no. And if we keep doing that, we're going to be an unlivable city. And I'm a policy wonk. I consider myself one. I'm an ethics professor at NYU. I work for President Obama. And what we're doing on this race is talking about both, needing to build more and do more, and also to be a better steward of your tax dollars.
So let's talk about some of the policies right now surrounding a big issue which came out of our polling, and that's public safety here in New York City. A lot of pressure on Congress to pass some sort of common sense gun reform and legislation. Do you think, with such division among the parties that we're seeing play out, that first and foremost, anything can get done if you are a member of Congress?
Absolutely. Look, I think that, we look at the 1970s, 80s generation, and they're going to have more rights than my generation and the next generation will, and my children will. And that is a travesty, that we've seen an erosion of things like gun control, reproductive rights, union rights, and that is because a Supreme Court run amok and a recalcitrant minority in the Senate. What we have to do, Dan, is over the next decade or two, make a new case for democratic values. And
Yes.
on guns, I will say this.
So-
I'll say this on guns, for example. There's an education campaign that needs to happen. People would be appalled to know, I think, that in 2005, gun manufacturers were shielded from every type of liability, not tobacco, not NFL, not Coca-Cola. The only industry in America that is fully shielded from negligence and torts from the use of their products is guns.
Okay.
And I got to add one thing about this. I'm the only candidate in this race, serious candidate in this race, who does not take corporate PAC money.
So,
Carolyn Maloney and Jerry Nadler have taken $120,000 from BlackRock itself, from its corporate PAC and lobbyists since 2009. BlackRock is the #1 shareholder in the top 4 gun manufacturers.
okay.
So yes,
I'm almost out of time. Almost out of time. So
Sorry.
let me just get in here, because you said absolutely you believe something could happen. And you're talking about a 10-year plan here, but people want to see it happen now. So you are confident that you can unite, if you were a member of Congress, that you could unite and bring over some Republicans to vote for gun legislation?
And yeah, and that's why I consider myself a pragmatic progressive, because I think that we have to extend a hand and work with Republicans where we can. And there are issues like red flag laws and liability protections for gun manufacturers that we see there's possibility for common ground. What you can't do is just go to Washington, vote for a bill, and come back and say I did my job when that bill doesn't become law. You have to use every means at your disposal and the power of persuasion to bring this thing back.
Understood. All right, we are out of time. We're going to leave it there, but I appreciate you being here, Mr. Patel, for your first appearance on Picks on Politics during the campaign season.